Hello, everybody. This is John Fenn with supernaturalhousechurch.org, talking more about discipleship and some of the things about walking with the Lord. And today, one of the things that I get emails about probably more often than any subject other than end times, and that is the discussion about Matthew chapter 7, verses 21, 22, 23, where Jesus said, "Not everyone who comes to me and says, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter into the kingdom of heaven. For many will come and say, 'Have we not preached? Have we not prophesied? Have we not done miracles and good works and cast out demons in your name?' And he says unto them, I will admit to them or confess to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work iniquity.'" And so I get a lot of emails from Christians saying, "Is that me? How can anyone be sure of their salvation?" And they'll write and they'll say things like, "I know the Lord. I've walked with the Lord. If I didn't know the Lord, I'd be in prison. I'd be 6 feet under. I would, and yet they're very, very much afraid." And part of that has been perpetuated, I think, by ignorant pastors and just people, not understanding the context. So I'm going to take that and one other thing that Jesus said that will be better understood, I think, and give you some peace. Now, the subject that I want to ask, and the question I want to ask is, do you believe Jesus? I mean, when Jesus said in John 14:6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." Do you believe that Jesus is telling the truth, that he is the way, that he is the truth? I mean, if the Lord said, "I've called you to this, or I've called you to that, or there's a peace about this situation," do you believe him? And the answer would have to be yes. I mean, even if you're listening to this and you don't know the Lord, you have to be intellectually honest and examine. He's either the Lord, who he says he is. He's either a liar or he's crazy. Lord, liar, lunatic. Which one is it? So even if you don't know the Lord, you've got to examine that, to be intellectually honest, to read through the Gospels yourselves. But for those of us who know him, do you believe the Lord? And the answer would be yes. But here's how people approach that. People approach Matthew chapter 7, verses 21, 22, and 23 as they read, "Where many will come to me on that day and say, 'Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied? Have we not cast out demons? Have we not done miracles in your name?'" And they look at that and say, "Oh no, I've done those things, and look at me." And they believe the person rather than the Lord. So that's why I ask you, do you believe the Lord? If the Lord said to somebody, "I never knew you," do you believe him? Never means never. In other words, these people were never born again. These people were never walking with the Lord. And he says not only that, he says, "You are workers of iniquity." That means not just trespassing one to another, but that means on a massive scale as a way of life, that they are actually sinners and working sin and deceiving others. So do you believe the Lord, or do you believe the people who come and say, "Lord, we've done this"? You see, many people will say, "Oh no, I've done all these things," and they forget the fact that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. He doesn't lie. If he says to somebody, "I never knew you," that means he never knew them. These people were never born again. Now, the proof of that is the context. If you go back into the context of Matthew chapter 7, and you start with verse 15, you'll understand the context of what Jesus is talking about. Because in verse 15, he starts out his subject matter by saying this: "Beware of false prophets. They come to you dressed in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." And he says, can you get grapes? From grapes do you get thorns, and from a fig tree do you gather brambles? Basically, he says, in other words, grapes produce grapes, and figs produce figs. He said, even so, that you will know them by their fruit. See, he's saying that these are the people he's talking about who will say, "Lord, Lord, haven't we done these amazing things?" He starts it out in verse 15 saying, "Beware of false prophets, beware of false believers. They are outwardly clothed like sheep, but inwardly they are wolves." And so that's why he says, you can't, from grapes you don't get thistles, and from figs you don't get thorns. And so you will know them by the fruit of their lives. Now, this is important because in Matthew 7:1, Jesus said, "Judge not, lest you be judged." And "judge not, lest you be judged" does not refer to judging somebody's actions, but rather refers to their heart. In other words, we're not to judge another person's heart. That's the realm of God. Only God knows a person's heart. And so Jesus said, "Don't judge lest you be judged." You're not to judge another person's heart. But he does say here, starting in verse 15, you do know them by the fruit of their lives. In other words, if they claim to be a Christian, but they're living an immoral life, if they are taking prey, if you see them come into a group of believers and then they peel off a little group and they become a little clique, and a little divisive group, full of envy and strife and divisions and separation and everything else, you know them by their fruit. Now, whether they know the Lord or not, that's between them and the Lord. But we are to judge them based on their actions, on the fruit of their lives. And that's why Jesus, having said that about beware of them, you'll know them by their fruit. That's why he goes on to say to us, not everyone who comes to me on that day who says, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. For many will come and say, haven't I preached? Haven't I cast out demons? Haven't I done miracles in your name? But I will admit to them, I never knew you. Depart from me. And he goes on to say in the next verses, he says, if you build your house on the rock, when the storm comes, it will still be standing. But if you build your house on sand, it will fall apart. And so the whole thing about Lord, Lord, and those who come to me, not everyone who comes to me will enter the kingdom of heaven, is sandwiched in between the talk of the false prophets on the one hand and an admonition to build our house on the rock. And of course, he is the rock. And so he's really talking about knowing him and walking with him. So understand that. He's not talking to you and me. If you walk with the Lord and you're doing the best you can and everything, he's not talking to you. You're not going to come to him and he's going to say, I never knew you. If you know him, you know him. And that's the truth of the matter. The other thing is in Matthew chapter 8, and this is another area where people get confused. And in Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 through 15, 5 through 13, excuse me, is the centurion's servant. And a lot of Christians don't understand this either. Basically, the centurion comes to Jesus and says, my servant who I love is very, very ill. And Jesus said, well, I'll come and heal him. And the servant says, no, the centurion says, the Roman soldier says, no, I'm not even worthy that you come under my roof. He said, just speak the word and it'll be enough, because I'm a man under authority. I say go and they go. I say come and they come. And so that's all you need to do. And Jesus said, I have not found such faith, such great faith, not even in Israel. And then he says this, I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom, while the children of the kingdom, many of the children of the kingdom, will be cast out. And so another thing that Christians misunderstand is they think, oh no, he's talking about us. Maybe I am going to be in one of those things where I'm going to be cast out because I'm a child of the kingdom. No, you have to understand context. Matthew was written for Jewish believers. He states in Matthew 1:5, he says, I'm going to show you that Jesus is the son of David. He's the Messiah. And so it's written first for a Jewish audience. So when you're talking children of the kingdom here in, the first century AD with Roman occupation, Jesus is talking about the children of the kingdom is Israel, Israelites, Jewish people. And so that's why he sets it up. He says, here's a Roman soldier who has greater faith than anything that Jesus has found in Israel. And that's why he says many will come from the east and the west. The east and the west is talking about Gentile nations, non-Israeli nations. Many will come from the east and the west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom, while children of the kingdom, many of the Jews who are unbelievers, will be cast out. So that's the context of what he's talking about in Matthew chapter 7 and Matthew chapter 8. So I just want to share that this morning because, like I said, this is one of the things I get more emails about probably than any other, except for end times. And just to let you know, back in Matthew chapter 7, when Jesus says, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, but they won't enter the kingdom of heaven. And they say, haven't we done this and haven't we done this in your name? And he says, I will admit to them, I never knew you. So the whole point of the whole thing is to know the Lord, not just know a religion, not just go through a scheduled, service and everything else, but really know the Lord. Talk to him, walk with him, and that by that I'm saying just include him in your daily life. You got a nice sunrise, just say, man, that's a beautiful sunrise, Lord. Start just including him in your life, thanking him for that parking space, if nothing else. You know what I'm saying? The coincidence, which is God ordering your steps. Include him in there, and you'll demonstrate how you do know the Lord, how you do love the Lord. You have nothing to be concerned about. All right, that's it for today. Talk to you next week. God bless.